Hello and welcome. And today we are talking about the syndicated ECOWAS ID. A very, very important milestone, if you ask, for 300 million people so over to have a common ID so we can trade among each other, open our borders and make ECOWAS reality become real. However, is it real? Because if you look at every and each state within the ECOWAS, we haven't been able to achieve this individually as state. How are we going to look at it on a broader scale? And that's what we are here to discuss. And with me in the studio to discuss this is Ibad Ibrahim, who's an international news and security analyst. I have also Jacob Osei Asare, CEO of Vital Source. And I have Fredia Dankwa, who is a consultant in biometric and IT. It's going to be a very broad discussion. My name is Nanan Sakwao, and this is PM Express.
Thank you very much. So far, we have in effect a protocol that allows our people to move freely in the sub-region between ECOWAS countries, visa-free for 90 days. We have agreed to implement a biometric ID card system that identifies ECOWAS citizens. And we believe that this identification card would enhance the protocol on free movement of people and goods within the sub-region and will enhance our integration project. There were 3 countries that expressed reservation, and so we endorsed it in principle, but we asked that a security appraisal be done. The reservation by the 3 countries was based on security issues, and it mainly raised the fact that with the current state of terrorism and also organized crime, drug trafficking, and all such armed robbery and all that, what would the effect be for that kind of free movement within the sub-region, that people can move and reside, wherever they want without the need for residence permits. And so there's a need to do a security appraisal to see what the level of threat is before any signing of that particular protocol comes into effect.
Well, and that's the topic on the table, syndicated ECOWAS ID. Can we ever realize this dream? And it's one thing that everybody agrees that it's important, but how can we achieve it on such a large scale? But before we even tackle it, how can I guess talk about famous IMF bailout? Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? Are we in favor or are we not? Gentlemen, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Jacob, I'll start with you with the IMF. Just a quick brief on the IMF issue before we move into our ECOWAS deal. Are you one about 2 things? Are you in favor and would it work?
I'm not all that in favor of it. Okay. Greece's experience, where they were given 110 billion euros. Okay, but the turnaround did not come overnight, and they are still struggling, meaning that there's a systemic problem that you need to tackle before such bailouts becomes more effective. But I don't think that Ghana will actually doing that yet. So it's not going to help us.
Ibad?
Nana, I think government's overtures to the IMF should be welcomed with cautious optimism. In international relations, Nana, there's nothing like a freebie or a free lunch. There are always consequences. Whatever action you take, there is a reaction that ricochets back to you. But have people even made time to look at what the IMF is? I think it was created in tandem with the World Bank in 1944, just during the twilight of the Second World War. And initially, it was meant to create that enabling environment for interstate trade. But itself into a money lending machine in the 1980s when there were loads of crises around the world. So therefore, I think we should welcome this because this is a blatant admission of the fact that our economy is in shambles. And the earlier we did something to salvage the situation, the better. But the IMF will only keep you afloat. It doesn't take you to the Disneyland. It keeps you afloat. So therefore, we should get our economic fundamentals right. You see, when the credit crunch busted in the United States between 2007 and 2008, they had to go back and then do an introspection to find out the fundamental causes of the problem. And it was as a result of the mortgage indecisions taken by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So therefore, as Ghanaians, what are the fundamentals we are not getting right in terms of our economy? Because history has shown that since 1997, the senior colleague made mention of the most recent one, Greece, 2012. But in 1997, 3 different countries, Haiti, Mexico, and South Korea, were bailed out. By the end of the day, they were made to go under the duress of so much, structural adjustment policies. So I think IMF bailouts are a new way of colonizing the continent economically. So therefore, you give yourself up, you open yourself up because whatever you do is going to be tied to the conditions they will give you in your transactions with international banking organizations and all that. And they will come and tell you how to even treat, the funding you have for education, health, and other bits. As Africans, we should be able to call the shots and determine ourselves. So it is not a good omen, Nana. I think as Africans today, we should bow our heads in shame that up to now, after 6 decades of independence, we still have to go cap in hand to our former colonial masters to seek direction. We are at 6, 6, and 7s, Nana. We've entirely lost our locus as to how we should run the country. That is why we are falling on an IMF bailout. So therefore, I'm not enthused about it as a Ghanaian. I feel abashed that people I used my franchise to vote into power have not been able to live up to expectation. They promised me heaven on earth, but unfortunately they failed me, and therefore we have to rely upon our former colonial masters, banking our faith on some people who didn't want our well-being in the past. And the president has tried to imbue some optimism. He has said that there is not an admission of failure, and the fact that the prospects for Ghana's economy are quite bright. And he says by the end of this month, we're even going to sign another deal with ENI, which is an Italian oil and gas exploration company. And apart from the 50,000 barrels of oil we extract every day, we are going to have 1 trillion cubic feet of gas at our disposal. So he has tried to dissipate the idea that we will be bargaining from a position of weakness because he feels like we are going around the negotiating table with a strong bargaining power. So therefore, let's give him the opportunity. But I'm not happy about the mixed signals that are coming from the president. I am a Muslim, and therefore I expected the president to imbue some hope in the populace when he spoke to Ghanaians on Eid Day. He said the dividends of the current so-called homegrown, painful, measures that have been put in place would begin to show by the end of the year. And now they are saying, well, it is going to show at the end of 2017. So we keep shifting the goalposts. We should come clean and then see how to treat the economy so that we salvage it from any difficult.
So yeah, your take on IMF?
No, I think my fellow panelists have already said a lot of what I will say to it. But this has been a long time coming. We just didn't wake up one morning and decide that, we need to get some help. What it looks like is that we have not been doing certain things right for a very long time, and it's catching up with us. So to me, it's an unnecessary evil, but it's a necessary something we have to do to stay afloat. If you look at it, you look at something like the government being the largest employer in the country, and for the past 2 years alone, we have seen a rise in the public sector wages by 75%. If you take certain things into consideration, it only goes to show that maybe we are not doing certain things right fundamentally from the beginning, and that we might need to do some house cleaning. Once we get that house cleaning done, then, maybe we would not really need all kinds of help from other places. If you look at, can we maintain or can we sustain an economy when you have a public sector wages growing by 75% within two years. These are things that we need to put some checks and balances in to make sure that we don't fall into some of these traps.
Anyway, I know you want to rebut about it, otherwise the show will change. So,
just something small.
We'll go back to
the fundamentals of our economy is not actually the microeconomic indices. You see, the foundation of the economy of every nation is made up of the natural resources and the human resources that that nation is endowed with. So if you have the sea and salt and fishes, okay, in the sea, if you have this good soil, if you have gold, you have diamond, you have manganese. If you have this climate, which is good weather, and you cannot manage them for the benefit of your citizenry, then forget about it. There's nothing. You see, what is actually happening, what the economists so-called as the fundamental, they are rather the symptoms of our economy. It's just like when you have a malaria. Okay, you have headache, and then those fever, and things like that. But the underlying factor is the fact that you have malaria. So what the economists have been giving us is just to give us paracetamol, so that you feel better with your headache.
The fever goes a bit.
So let's treat the malaria and get the economy right.
Fredia, let me come back to ECOWAS ID card. Now, I just want to find out, because you are, into the IT side and biometric. How prepared are we as a, ECOWAS to start biometricing us?
ECOWAS and biometrics. I would say that technologically it's not far-fetched. It can be done. But the other things, the logistics and the infrastructure and other platforms that will make it possible is what I have my doubts about. Because if you look at it, it's no different than enrolling people, registering people all over the place for a country, and now we're going to do it for the region. But I like what you said in your intro, that we haven't even been able to achieve this as member states of ECOWAS. So to go to a bigger stage, like we're going to do it for all the member states of ECOWAS, and how long would that take? We haven't been able to achieve that in Ghana, to have a biometric ID cards for our citizenship. So the challenge is not technological, it's more of a political will and the political capacity to do it. If you take, how many people are we talking about? 300 million people plus? What are the security implications, as you saw the president talk about? There are security implications. How are they going to collaborate from state to state, collaborate as to the protocols to be used in dealing with citizens as they come across the borders? What are the other immigration factors, extradition, and there's a whole lot of things that needs to be taken into account. When you talk about the technology of it, personally, I don't think that it's a big deal. It can easily be done. But the logistics and the funding and all the other stuff, are we going to just get up one day and say, who is going to bear all that cost?
I'll bring you in, but
Okay.
let me go to Jacob and find out, how well are we managing, per head count in Ghana? And if we are not, why aren't we managing that?
In Ghana, I think that we are not, but we are in the process of just trying to achieve that.
Okay, now, you ran for president before, so obviously you know what leadership is. You need data to be able to base your policies on. So, I don't know if I'm being too passionate, or why is it that, the state don't realize that all our policies will be based on this data, and therefore, before we make the policies, we should get that data.
You see, that is why much is dependent on the priority as a people, and whether we appreciate the fact that for a modern state, you need such a system in order to run the state effectively. Now, we don't really, if you're going to the hinterlands, you get to a certain place, you might think that there's no population over there. But if you begin to move into the bush, you begin to see a lot of people in there. I think the telecos are actually experiencing that. They might think that, oh, this place, we don't have much population. They will go and then put up a system over there. And then overnight, within the shortest possible time, it's full. It means that as a nation, we've not been able to capture the individuals and where they are. And that is why there's the need for such a system like this, ensuring that, Nana, you are here, this is your profession, this is your age, and so on and so forth. So that based on this, we'll be able to do a lot of analysis that can help us to develop our nation. So we are not there yet. And I think that is why the best way to go about it is about coming out with these biometric systems, okay? And how we want to go about with the capturing. And then making sure that, just as my friend Fridua said, we have the needed infrastructure in place. We need a permanent system, okay? If you want to learn from Germany, they have about 5,600 offices that captures data nationwide. Okay, so that when you have a problem with your ID card, you can go there and register. When you are moving from one province onto the other, they have what you call, you have to deregister from where you are, and then the new place that you're going, you go there and register, so that they know that, Nana, you've moved from the village and you are now living in Accra here, and then there's a permanent place that you ought to go. But we don't have such an infrastructure in place. So as a nation, we need to put in some of these permanent infrastructure in place. We can start with the district assemblies. We have 216. If not, move on to the constituencies, 275. We can also decide, the post office has about 544 outlets. We have our police stations all around. So we need to begin with this and ensuring that we have a permanent place that can capture for people to go in for their cards and so on and so forth. It's not an issue to do with the cards, which is important, but it is the infrastructure which supports the card that can say that, Nana, this is Nana. Because you can get Nana answer 2 in the data, but your bio-identity can differentiate Nana answer 1, Nana answer 2. Okay, so we need all this infrastructure in place. And then these offices ought to be able to communicate with one another. Other than that, you have a system whereby somebody from one region, okay, it's just like what is happening with this, the National Health Insurance. Somebody in Kumasi, okay, can go and get a card, and then the person can come to Accra and also did that. Maybe recently you might have heard what happened, the incident at Obuasi, whereby a 3-year or 4-year child fell down, okay, because the parents moved to Obuasi and they felt that, no, whilst they are leaving the child there, why not try to get another health insurance card for the child over there? But you need an infrastructure such that when someone moves from Kumasi to Accra, that infrastructure will be able to capture the person that, yes, Nana, we know that you are in Kumasi, but you've moved to Accra, okay? And this is the data. This is the history about your health. So irrespective of wherever that you go, we will know that that is Nana who has moved from Kumasi. So as for the head count, we don't know. So any decision that we normally take is to me, around 68%. Okay, you cannot get about 90% or 100%.
Well, Nana, yes.
Nana, Nana, I don't know. I am a young man. I was born in a hospital. I don't know. Nana, were you born at home?
No, I was born in the hospital.
You were also born in the hospital. I think we should go beyond the statistics of identification and look at the forensics. When you talk about head count, it's just like roll call in a class. You just 1, 2, 3 people. There are 25 people in a row. But you should be able to get the bio data of all those people. So I think we should go beyond only knowing the numerical strength of people in various ECOWAS countries to looking at the bio components of the people. there are easier ways of doing it through the DNA, fingerprints, the cornea or retina of people's eyes and all that. And I must say that, Nana, at this juncture, we should commend the Ghana Immigration Service. Of all the statistical institutions we have in the country, they are very good at determining the people who come through the country and go out at any point in time, especially when you look at the flight manifest we have that come through that comes through the Kotoka International Airport. So I think we can leverage that so that this idea of getting, a synchronization of the identities of ECOWAS citizens, because it will help us in the long run. From a security point of view, it can help curb, just as the president indicated, drug trafficking, human trafficking, money laundering, and then the latter-day crime in the sub-region, terrorism as well. So therefore, I think it's nice. And the technical people have said there is no technological deficit to that. So I think if you want to keep up with the Joneses, I think you should be able to up your ante, get the needed funding, make sure that individually the countries are well equipped, ready for such a synergy, so that we harmonize for all those countries. And our president last year told the MMDCEs that he had given them an ultimatum of September this year to name all the streets in the country. And how far have we gotten with that? So identifying people as part of a sub-regional bloc like ECOWAS, it's all about person A, B, or C. Knowing the person's place of domicile, where the person goes for work, how the person moves, the person's, source of livelihood and all that should also play into the larger, scheme of things. So at the end of the day, we'd be able, anytime you key in anything, of all the 15 capitals we have within the sub-region, there will be a mainframe computer or a common database where we'll have pieces of information, biodata about each individual person. So we can engender the much touted ECOWAS that we are all talking about, not also losing sight of the fact that the security implications also have to be looked at. And I have also always said that when you look at the portrait of the countries we have within the sub-region, I'm very particular about the human rights of people. For example, if we are all on one biodata, and everybody has identified wherever you go, and we say there is free movement of people, if somebody committed a crime in a country where there is no liberty, where there's no respect for human rights, just as we have in Yahya Jammeh's the Gambia. Look at what happened in 2005. Over 44 Ghanaians were killed. And the pretext that was given for the murder of those people in cold blood was that they were mercenaries that were being used to perpetrate a coup in the country. And when you look at the ECOWAS, Convention on Extradition, it states categorically that you just can't lift a person from point A to point B because you think he's in Nigeria, he has committed crime A. And according to your legal and judicial system, he's punishable by A or B. Is it applicable to another country that is a sister nation within ECOWAS?
We're going to take a break, and then when I come back, I just want to find out, we have an NHIS. So what if somebody comes and falls sick? Is he entitled to the same NHIS, or how does it work? Stay tuned.
Work has to be done. We would have to be looking at this at various levels. The different countries will have to set up maybe committees or look at ways of finance. That's one, how it's going to be financed, whether you pay for it or the countries are going to pay for it. You have to look at the legal aspects. The various countries will have to bring their legal experts together to look at all of the issues involved in the security. People will have to come together. The technology people will have to come together, because the systems that we have in the various countries are all different, and proprietary rights are all involved. All of these systems are more or less closed systems, and so for them to even communicate, we have to come to some level of agreement with our providers to be able to even harmonize these systems. It's a proposal. I don't think they set any timelines to it. So it's something that could be worked on. And if there's a need for the harmonization of the databases across the sub-region, it means that then all countries will have to make sure that they have a complete national database in place. And that means that those who don't have the biometric system in place will have to procure it. And so if you have already and it's not complete, you have work to do to complete it. So in Ghana, for instance, we already have the issue of harmonizing our own biometric ecosystem. It is something we are currently discussing. Government is championing it. There's a call for us to issue a smart card, and the National ID, National Identification Authority already is working towards issuing a 127 kilobyte card, smart card, that can allow other institutions to directly store their data on that system and be able to manage.
Well, how big and the logistics involved, but to continue the, I'm coming to you, Fredwa. One thing that really bugs me, is this fact that it's only when we turn 18, then all of a sudden the state is interested in you, that look, wherever you are, get yourself on the voters register. Right. And even if you can't afford it, some politician will bus you there, make sure you are on there. Between 0 and 18, I mean, can we still capture the data and alert some system? Because, I mean, all these things, your phone always pling to say, this guy is 21 today, he's 30 today, he's 40 today. Right. Can you IT guys do something for us so that at my 18th birthday, the alarm goes off to say, look, he's ready to vote, so that even if I don't want to vote, at least I'm on the system somewhere.
Right. I mean, the political will to have election management systems take over identity management systems in Africa is one of the biggest problems. As we speak today as we speak, they have started the limited registration exercise. The Electoral Commission have started that. And you wonder, we have two years to go for elections, right? Close to 2 years to go for elections. So what happens to those people who will turn 18 next year? I mean, why are we doing this now? There's a lot of things that we have the political will to dole out money, find the funds to do this, but when it comes to the most important part of it, which is to be able to account for every citizen, to be able to know that, we have 25 school-going age children coming up the next month who will be going to school, so we make provisions for that school systems for them, to be able to do that. So we plan ahead of time to know that, we have 12, 13-year-olds in a particular area that are going to be going to wherever they're going to be going. These are more important things that needs to be taken into account. And as a people, I think we are losing sight of what's more important. It has become more important to go and queue, and I mean, it's so important to us to go and vote to elect our leaders. And I'm not discounting that it's not important. No. But there are other much more important things. As we discussed earlier about this IMF issue, it all goes to the fact that we are not able to make certain forecasts that will alleviate some of these pains within our structure. And hopefully, as going forward, we can put these measures in place, so that, as we sit here in Ghana, the national identification card is not as widely used as the Electoral Commission's card. The voters register, the voters card is more accepted at the banks than the national ID card, which it should be the other way around.
Fredia, let me stay with you, because you and I, can we consolidate all these things? Because, every day, I mean, I've even championed it, we have too many ID cards. Is it possible to consolidate it? So you use one ID card and you could be, the bank can recognize it, he can recognize it, your hospital can recognize it. Is it possible, or will it be too much?
It's very, very possible. What we call in the ID industry federated identification management systems. The federated identification management system is where you can use one card to access so many different services, because they are all on the same system, the same platform. And there has been some agreement or some agreements in place that you can use this card to access health care, to go and vote. You know, people who live in America don't need to spend $180 million like we did to get voters' ID cards, because they have a national identification, they have an identification system already in place. So we, as poor people, have to go out there and find $180 million to get that plastic thing they gave us just for voting, and then we can use that for identification purposes. You know, we have there are certain things that need to be managed right. Once we have all of that in place, then we can actually have the foundation to build a sound economy on that foundation. You know, when you think about it, you know, we go out, find the money to pay for things we shouldn't be paying for.
But the biometric machine, because I know, I think the EC's got one, and I think the driving license.
Yes, I was coming to that.
Oh, okay.
You know, we have the AFISs, which is the automatic fingerprint identification systems. And all we need is to have one central AFIS for the whole of Ghana. That's all we need. You know, and these things are not cheap. $50 million,
Whoa.
$60 million, and we have about 8 of them floating around in small Ghana. You know, we don't need it. NHIS have their own AFIS system, national identification, which is the foremost authority on identification and the management in the country, which to me should be financed well enough, or to be funded well enough to have the central AFIS so that they will control all the other identification things that we need to do in the country. You know, but here we are, we have, Ghana Immigration Service alone have 2 AFISs.
Oh.
You know, you have, them was donated by the American government or something like that. Then you, even the Bank of Ghana have an AFIS. You know, SNATE has an AFIS. And these things are not cheap. When we can use one central AFIS to control about 25 million people, you know, we don't do that. But because of certain policy lapses in the system, you know, these are all government agencies. So somewhere along the line, somebody's paying for it. You know, so we have, we pay an AFIS for SNATE to set it up because they need to check out the people paying their social security or whatever. Then you go to the driver's license place. DVLA has their own AFIS to check for people.
And they don't talk to each other.
They don't. There's no harmonization between them. I know there's an effort by the current administration to harmonize all of these AFISs so that we can have one central repository of database that can control the identity of our people.
Jacob, how much corruption can you get rid of if you can get all these identities to talk to each other? I mean,
the first thing that can come to anybody's mind is the ghost names that we have, that will pay so much. That drastically, if not anything at all. You see, the other thing is also that, especially for the ECOWAS, okay, if there's a criminal in Nigeria that is now living in Ghana, and then he's being trapped, I mean, they can use this AFIS system, that is a automatic fingerprint information system. They can just use to really identify the person. And then in terms of security, you see, there are a lot of security implications, and that one as a nation, we are not there. And that is why what Fredia was saying was quite important. There's no reason why that all these people should be taking our fingerprints, because its security implication is serious. Can you imagine that next time you are the president of Ghana and then you have your fingerprints everywhere? We don't understand that. There are a lot of security implications about that. So the earlier, I mean, we harmonize them, the better it will be for our nation. At least it can help track a lot of people. But earlier on, you mentioned something that I really wanted to comment about. You know, the NIA is actually coming out with what they call unique PIN, okay, for each individual. It's just like in the US or the social security number. It tracks a person right from birth to death, and it identifies that person, and it's actually linked up with the person's, let's say, NHIS card, with the person's driving license, with the person's passport, and so on and so forth. So with that unique PIN, it can help identify someone, and it makes life quite easier, right from birth. Then you are being tracked. But you see, we need to look at it in the context of us as Africans. I mean, in the villages, you have a lot of people are born over there, but not in hospitals. Even with the chip system, the compounds that we're talking about, it's not everywhere. But then the birth and death, they have what we call the village register, whereby whenever somebody is born, they go to the Ahimfie, and then make sure that that child's name is written in it, so that from time to time, they'll go to that village and visit that. And that is why I was saying that if we were to have these permanent offices closer to these places, and they know that this is where you're supposed to go, despite the fact that you might have given birth at home through a traditional birth attendant and so on and so forth, then it can actually help. Now, with the issue of EC, if NRA were to get it right, we don't need this, to put it in quote, needless exercise of EC, whereby, just as Frida was saying, you just want to have this exercise now.
Next year somebody will say, and then in 2016, we will have a lot of people that will turn 18. With this one, when we have this electronic register in place, we will know those who can turn even 18 on the day of voting or the day before, so that most people will not be disenfranchised during election time. So we need to put these systems in place rather than spending, I mean, I was shocked when I heard the amount that you $180 million. You just go for that. That's a bailout on his own.
You see, at the end of the day, so as a nation, we got to get this fundamentals. I would say this is another fundamentals of economy. Let's get this one right, and then begin to govern a modern state.
Yeah, Nana, I cracked, a subtle joke, but it didn't tinkle anybody, because I said an inkling of the people within any jurisdiction should not be an 18-year-old thing. It's an important juncture, because that's when you begin to exercise your suffrage as a citizen. But it should be a grave kind of thing. So when I asked you whether you were born in a hospital, I was making, allusion to the fact that some people are born in the hinterlands and they don't have any relationship whatsoever. So what is the incentive for people to even get registered? So I think a lot of, thinking has to go into this. If my grandmother were a farmer in the hinterlands, why would she find it necessary to go and be on some consolidated card? She doesn't bank with any traditional banking system and all that. So we should be able to divide the people we are dealing with, urban people who know the importance of such things.
What if you link it to school? I mean, I think when everybody wants to send their child to a school or something, and that you should have that number before you come to school. You get free school uniform or free shoe.
Yeah, at the end of the day,
free something.
Nana, even in war-ravaged countries, one way to siphon weapons from the hands of people is by incentivizing them. There should always be an incentive. So we're always good at, telling people to use their own, conscience and come out of their own volition to do certain things. This is a national exercise, and everybody should be roped in. But there are certain people who would want to ask, what is an it for me? Why do I need to get on this national identification system? And therefore, there should be ways of cajoling people to be on this common database. Because if you have no idea whatsoever how many people you are talking about providing amenities to, then at the end of the day, you'll be shooting in the dark.
I'm going to take a break here, and then when I come back, we'll move. Syndicating the ECOWAS ID. Now, one thing that really intrigues me is that, you know, ECOWAS has been in existence for many, many years. We used to trade amongst each other, and then the colonial master came and literally sliced up the whole region, and then we stopped trading. I'm just wondering if suddenly we issued these cards, if Fedua gave us all these biometric and we issued these cards, then would you just suddenly go to Mali and say, well, I have a card, I'm going to Mali to sell them salt or find some opportunity? Would that make us trade amongst ourselves?
It's yes and no, you see. Because if you look at Ghana laws, just like how Guta is fighting the Chinese and so on and so forth, that they cannot come up to the level of retailing and so on and so on. Every country has such laws. Okay, so it's not an issue of the fact that the moment you say that you're a member of ECOWAS, you can move on to the other country and begin to trade in something that their laws, okay, bash or prohibit. You cannot actually do that. But at least it can help the free movement, okay, of people. You can easily move from Ghana onto the other country to analyze, take an environmental scanning of whatever thing that is going on over there, to see the opportunities, whether there's a market for your
Ghanaians will just go straight to Nigeria, and Nigeria will come here because we can speak French. I mean, you are not bad at French, but I mean, I wouldn't stop anywhere, straight to Nigeria, because just for sheer insecurity, I don't even know what you're talking about.
See,
and I'm sure many Ghanaians are like me.
You know, trade has its rules and so on and so forth. So by having the card will not necessarily, unless we put in the principle of trade.
I think that the card would be a starter. It would, you know, be for confidence building and, you know, creating that rapprochement between various citizens of the various countries within the sub-region. That, well, as a Ghanaian, I could traverse our borders, go into any country and do my own feasibility studies. But whatever I do should inure to the benefit of the people, the host country. So therefore, much as there are diplomatic, you know, rules that govern how expatriates can live in other people's countries, there is extraterritoriality and all. In commerce, there are rules of engagement. So you need to understand them before you flout the rules and the inherent rules in the various countries. But getting the cards is like giving you the carte blanche to be able to traverse borders, go into those countries, and study the system over there, and see where you can invest.
But our problem is language, not necessarily card. I mean, by all means, if I wanted to go to Togo without a card or not, I could venture into Togo. But, you know, I'd rather venture into Nigeria because I can easily understand
the Francophone-Anglophone divide within the sub-region is quite a palpable problem. You know, there are only 5 Anglophone countries: Sierra Leone, Liberia, the Gambia, Ghana, and Nigeria. The others, apart from, are all, you know, Francophone countries. So therefore, it's quite a challenge. And more Francophone ECOWAS citizens speak English than do Anglophone ones in case of what? French. So it becomes, your hands become tight because of that linguistic disparity. You don't have the confidence to even go negotiate, you know, any business dealings with other people. So then I don't know whether you would go with an interpreter, you would need to learn some few French words.
You see, the world system, the world order is set in nationality. It will be hard for you to start thinking about yourself as an ECOWAS citizen rather than a Ghanaian citizen, you know, and we will always have that. I don't see that changing in our lifetime, you know, so there's always that, you know, imaginary demarcation that we already have, you know, so when you take your stuff to Togo to sell or trade or whatever, you can do that just now without any biometric card. I mean, it doesn't really necessarily afford you the opportunity to go and trade other than what you're getting right now, I don't think. You know, so the idea of trade and, you know, eventually becoming an ECOWAS citizen, you know, rather than a Ghanaian citizen, is really in the very far distance from now. You know, and we will always try to look at, if you watch the demarcation we have now, English-speaking countries surrounded by French-speaking countries. Ghana is surrounded by French-speaking countries. Nigeria is surrounded. You know, it's like that. It's almost as if by design, you know, so that
don't get them to talk.
It will actually take some very, very strong political will for us as a people to start seeing ourselves in that perception that, you know, we want to trade amongst ourselves, we want to do things. Because if you take this syndicated ID card system for ECOWAS, for example, you know, it's not going to be that easy to implement.
No, and what I haven't heard is an ECOWAS Schengen visa. You know, I haven't heard that.
That is where I was coming.
Yeah.
You see, because in terms of trading, we have what we call country-specific advantage. Okay, whereby you know the kind of resources that you have that you can trade. Now, in terms of ECOWAS as a region, we want to talk about the regional specific advantage of ECOWAS as against the South Africa one, or the East Africa one, or the North Africa one. I mean, if I'm an ECOWAS member, what are some of the advantages? What are some of in quote, duty-free can I enjoy with my goods?
So why are you answering that? Add this to it, because we've always known that Nigeria is in dire need of salt and that they buy from Brazil. And the only West African country that harvests salt is Ghana. But we just...
You know, this has nothing to do with a card or not. It's purely our own. That is why when I was talking, it's one of the fundamentals of economy. So what are our government doing about that? Making sure, what are some of the incentives that we need to push into that sector? Now, to even talk about cassava. Cassava, look at the brewers. They need it in abundance. Most of us, we now spray our starch. We can easily, the government can do that. So if we want to go into that, that one has got its own...
There's a whole...
It's just our government. That is why, you see, Ghana should be like heaven with all these advantages that we have.
No, but Nana, it's quite unfathomable why people would want to cross the Atlantic, go to Brazil and buy something you can get next door in Ghana. So that tells you that there isn't enough confidence in ourselves as a sub-region.
No, we are not taking, you see, what I was talking about country-specific advantages. As a nation, in theory, when we're doing economics theory, they know what I'm talking about, the country-specific advantages. Like Ghana, we have salt, unlike Mali, whereby they are not bothered with it. So that is our country-specific advantage. So if we're not even to have oil or gold, or the diamonds and so on and so forth, it would have, because Mauritius is sugarcane. It's a sugarcane economy, and their per capita is over 13,000.
Yeah.
Ghana with all this is around 1,200, and now they say that it's now around 1,000. So who should we go and blame?
You see, the other thing is, you see international trade facilities being other countries will fight to give their farmers some kind of tax incentives, some incentives to produce more and sell them even within the same market, you know. So, and if you watch, countries, the economies of countries are growing as according to the size of the economy, the size of the population, you know. That's what the Chinese are doing so great, because they have a local market, they can just sell right there too, you know. So if we are going to open up our borders and become a region of 320 million people, there's a lot of advantages to that. But are we going to exploit it in a way that we can sit at the negotiation table so that somebody is not telling ECOWAS that, you know, you can't give these incentives to your people because the IMF says so, or because the World Bank is saying that you can do this, you know, so that if you watch, you have all kinds of...
because 300 million is a good market.
That is enough. And Nana, our leaders are not to blame too much. They don't know where their loyalty is. Are they committed to various countries within the sub-region, or they need to, you know, kowtow to some of the demands that are being made by the IMF and the World Bank, just as the senior colleague has indicated? So let's be able to stamp our authority. When you go to Europe, it is only Russia that supplies them with natural gas. And that is on paper and has to be implemented. So it's not like all things that we produce here needs to be taken overseas. We've just signed the EPA. I think our leaders are sending very wrong signals to us. In one breath, you say we should consolidate intra-trade amongst countries within the sub-region. In another breath, you are opening us all up to Western markets who are here to exploit us as a people. So I don't know, Nana. We should be able to give some quota and thresholds at the end of the day, that there are certain things that are going to be traded amongst us as ECOWAS countries, and the surplus may be opened up to the rest of the international market. Because if loyalties keep shifting, are we committed to ECOWAS, or we are committed to some EPA agreement or some? So at the end of the day, our politicians will come in and go, and their time is quite ephemeral. They come for 4 years or 5 years. At the end of the day, you put your money where your mouth is. So therefore, it doesn't inure to the benefits of the larger masses of the ECOWAS sub-region.
Well, thank you very much, Jacob. Thank you, Ibad, and thank you, Frederick. That's all time will allow me, and I hope that you will give me a part 2 of this, and then we'll shift and look at ECOWAS in general, not necessarily the ID, and then we can delve into it. And as I always say, thank you very much for watching. Tomorrow we'll be back to do it all over again. Thank you, guys.